Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. We're very happy to have you with us. My name's Bryant Hendricks. I'm the energy industry portfolio developer here at Siemens, and I'll be moderating today's session. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to send an email to myself or Chris, and we will follow up as quickly as possible following the presentation. So with that said, we're very excited to offer you a deep dive into how artificial intelligence, AI, is revolutionizing the bid and tender process. In today's session, you'll discover how AI is not just enhancing efficiency, but completely reshaping the way organizations like yourself approach the complexities of bid management. In today's webinar, we're going to explore several key innovations around this, including number one, automating the extraction and classification of requirements from complex documents, enabling faster and more accurate insights. Number two, AI assistance compliance checks that leverage historical data to ensure your bids align with industry standards and best practice, as well as significantly, again, speeding up the time to response. Number three, cutting edge time saving techniques, reducing analysis from weeks to just hours while improving overall accuracy and reliability at the same time. And finally, and perhaps most critically, what many customers share with us quite often is mitigating risk related to non-conformance, where missing even one critical requirement can cost your company millions of dollars. So with that said, we're very excited to get started here, and I'd like to introduce our main presenter today, Chris Stazinski. He's our pre-sales lead for Polarion with extensive energy experience as well. So with that, Chris, I am happy to pass the baton to you.
All right, perfect. Thanks for the intro and the handoff, Bryant. So to kind of reintroduce myself again, my name is Chris Stazinski, and as Bryant mentioned, I'm a solutions consultant here at Siemens. And my focus is really on bid and tender management, and especially recently, utilizing AI to help enhance that process. So today, we're going to be exploring how AI is transforming bid and tender management, really starting with that overview of the scenario, as well as those common challenges that customers face when they approach us with the goal to improve their bid and tender process. So following that initial overview of the scenario and common challenges, I'm going to go ahead and introduce how Siemens AI-powered bid and tender management solution really helps to transform that process and provide tangible value to organizations. So finally, I will then be leading us through a brief demonstration of the solution so you can get an understanding of how the tool looks, feels, and functions. So as I mentioned, I'm going to start by examining some common scenarios and issues that customers bring to us regarding bids and tenders. And as we look at the bid and tender lifecycle, we're really considering the project definition all the way through to the project execution. And this process typically begins with receiving those tender documents from an organization. And this is often not just one document, but multiple related documents that then need to be evaluated quickly and comprehensively. And oftentimes there's a tight deadline between receiving these documents as well as submitting the bid. And I've heard, honestly, as short as 2 weeks between the tender received and when the bid is due. And as the decision is made to submit the bid and continue on with that bid development, really that process typically involves collaboration, not only between multiple expert groups within your organization, but communication back and forth with external stakeholders to really manage any clarifications or deviations. And then finally, as you develop that bid and once the contract is won, there is now that predefined and agreed upon basis for the project start. And also then for those project execution activities. So at this point, change management becomes more consequential, and all necessary activity tracked within the execution system then needs to tie back to that agreed upon requirements. And ultimately, when it's all said and done, the knowledge gained and lessons learned should be captured throughout this process and applied to any future engagements. But what we've kind of seen, or what customers have said, is that in this current environment, really organizations struggle with several key challenges. I mean, for one, companies typically are using multiple disconnected solutions throughout this process. Commonly, we hear Word, Excel, as well as various homegrown tools. This fragmentation really not only creates clear data silos, but it also introduces inefficiencies and risks throughout the project lifecycle through that lack of a centralized location for knowledge and collaboration. And that negatively impacts various activities throughout the lifecycle, both as I've already discussed and a few other ways here. So, like organizations can fall into kind of what we refer to as a PDF misery with a plethora of documents provided and a tight turnaround. And then through that bid development, collaboration both across groups and across organizations that really relies heavily on email threads makes it difficult to keep track of the latest progress, which ultimately makes it difficult to have that 100% confidence in what was agreed upon at the contract award. And then finally, at project start, really without that integrated change management and then traceability through project execution, seemingly minor changes can have larger unintended consequences due to that lack of visibility into the impact of the changes. So, as I mentioned, that's the current scenario that customers come to us with when they're looking to improve their bid and tender management process. Our solution starts to address these challenges primarily through a centralized AI-powered platform that transforms the entire bid and tender management process. So instead of relying upon those manual processes as well as disconnected tools, our solution provides and enables that AI-powered document analysis, extraction, and classification, provides a centralized collaboration environment as well as that knowledge repository, provides integrated change management, end-to-end traceability, and ultimately that integration with various execution systems. And we're going to go ahead and see this all in action during the later demonstration. But to start, some of the potential benefits customers and what they've seen are significant and measurable. So customers have seen a 25% reduction in bid creation lead time within the first year of using the solution, as well as a potential for a 26% increase in knowledge reuse just after 5 months. And this ultimately leads to a few things, primarily a reduction in non-billable hours due to the ability to automate those mundane tasks, allowing your engineers to focus more on value-add activities, as well as the decrease in non-conformance costs that results from the reuse of tried and true historical knowledge and having that traceability that enables you to track activities and compliance back to your specific requirements. And ultimately, that leads to the ability to win more through decreasing the bid lead time, improving accuracy, leading to that better project execution. So with that, I'm now going to go ahead and take you through a demonstration of the solution so you can see how the system actually looks, feels, and functions in real-world scenarios. I'm actually going to cut off my video as well for bandwidth purposes, just as a notice. So as we get into the live demonstration, I believe it's important to first understand what insights and data will be available once the system is fully implemented. So I'm going to begin by showing a comprehensive bid and tender project dashboard for a project that is currently in progress. And for context, this project dashboard reflects data for those requirements that have been extracted from the tender documents, have been analyzed and assessed by the AI, and are currently managed within the solution. This view consolidates critical information about the project and the requirements within, and the values highlight how the AI assessment enables streamlined risk assessment, resource planning, and progress monitoring. And this is all done with values such as requirement criticality, an initial compliance determination, requirement topics, and disciplines. And then as these items are developed within the management solution, progress can be recorded for each individual item. And then a real-time status is visible for an overall project summary. So we see here how this dashboard gives us that initial high-level view of what information we can extract, analyze, and manage using our AI-powered solution. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the beginning and actually see how this data is generated and managed, starting from a new tender submission, utilizing AI to provide that initial assessment of the documents, then developing and managing the resulting requirements. So within the solution, information is organized into distinct projects. And each project that you see here represents a separate tender submission or RFQ. And what's notable about these projects is that in addition to simply organizing information like folders, each project has configurable metadata that allows you to capture information about the project itself, including the project name, customer information, as well as we'll see here the project type, any regional designation, as well as product line details. And really any other custom field your organization needs to track can be configured here for this at this project level. And what this does is it improves your ability to search through past bids. And then the data here can then be further utilized for AI-driven reuse, depending upon the values that are configured for this project. And once this project is created, what we're going to go ahead and do next is begin to upload our tender documents. And the system here, as we go and upload the files, accepts most standard business formats, such as PDFs, Word documents, Excel files, PowerPoint presentations, as well as even emails and images. So in this instance, I actually have a folder of tender documents that were shared, and I can simply drag and drop these folders with multiple files here for processing. And as you can see, there are a variety of file types here. Now, next here, as we upload the files, this is where it starts to get interesting. Because as soon as these files are uploaded, the AI engine begins processing them automatically. And we can begin to follow along with the process right here and see the operations that the system is performing, including right off the bat, converting non-searchable PDFs with OCR if required, as well as extracting and analyzing the document text, understanding the document layout, identifying headers as well as footers, and recognizing and extracting tables. But most importantly, what the AI is doing is that it's analyzing the actual content and providing an initial line-by-line assessment based on the historical data that the AI has been trained on. So after this loads for a moment, I'm going to go ahead and refresh the page to take a look at the results. So now, instead of just seeing a static PDF, we now have an interactive document broken down into individual items that each have their own underlying data. We can also see that populated in the table below the document. So we're going to take a look at this individual requirement here about a termination notice. And we'll notice how the AI system automatically identified it as non-compliant, marked it as high criticality, so it could potentially be a no-go for the project, tagged relevant disciplines such as legal and commercial, and even suggested document text or comment text, let's say, to communicate the situation to external stakeholders. In this case, indicating that the standard termination notice is 30 days. And that would also be the case for any additional fields that you use in your bid process. So what I'm going to do here actually is I'm going to quickly modify the topics that I see here, removing mechanical, as well as adding termination as a client topic. So you can see how I was able to use those AI results as a starting point and then update where needed. And this would actually be a good time to comment a bit more on how the AI produces its results. So as I alluded to before, the AI here is trained only on your organization's data. And as such, it generates results that are specific to you and your organization, meaning that these results are not generic to an industry. The AI is continuously trained as you work in the solution, and then information is automatically reused and applied based on your responses to prior similar bids and for prior similar individual requirements. And we can actually see how this works as we go through and we look at the suggested comments here for each of these individual requirements. So here we can see that the system has identified similar requirements from previous bids. Since this is a demo environment, a lot of these items you see here will be similar. Yet, as I scroll down, I want you to notice this particular item in which the previous termination notice was 30 days. If I want to, I can then dive deeper into this item to see the circumstances for this requirement, as well as understand how the conversation was handled with the stakeholder for that requirement. And then if I wanted to, I could then reuse that communication for my current bid response if I choose. And then from there, this comment would then be shared with the customer, with the external stakeholder when I generate that deviations list later on. In this case, I'm just going to use the initial comment that was provided by the AI. So to kind of highlight what we just did there, in just a few minutes, I used our solution to segment this PDF into individual requirements. In addition to just that, I now have an initial assessment, of each line item requirement based on how similar requirements were classified in prior bids. And finally, I have the insight into why a requirement was assessed the way it was, and I can take advantage of that prior knowledge to communicate back to my stakeholders. And this greatly improves both my ability and my confidence in managing my bid response with a quicker turnaround than doing this manually. But still, it's important to remember that the AI is an assistant, helping you to be more efficient and effective with your work. So as a result, there still needs to be that expert hand or hands to review, further develop, and improve this bid response. So now that we've seen this power of the AI analysis, we're actually going to see how this intelligence, integrates seamlessly with our bid and tender manager. And what's powerful about this integration is that it's bidirectional. So any changes made here or in the AI layer are automatically synchronized, ensuring that our AI continues learning from every action that we take. In addition to that, the platform here serves a few critical functions, the first of which is collaboration. So teams can work together in one centralized location. All stakeholders have access to the same current information. I highlighted that project report that we looked at earlier. All that data came from what you saw here. In addition to that, kind of the comments as well as the discussions for each of these individual items are captured directly within the requirements themselves. And then lastly, configurable workflows, both at the requirement level and also at the document level, ensure that development is in line with your organization's process, ensuring that, in this case, the necessary information is captured at each stage in development and streamlining ultimately the review and the approval process. And every change that you make in the system is automatically documented. So you're able to see who made changes, when they were made, and ultimately what those changes were. That's, again, both at the individual requirement level, at the item level, as well as at the document level. In addition, at the document level, you're able to further capture baselines as well as manage versions in order to preserve the information at various stage gates. So as we go back to the item here, many times when engineers are working in the system, the main question is, how do I find the work that I need to do now? Well, here within our Bid and Tender Manager solution, this information is served up here in the user's personal dashboard, which shows only those items that are assigned or related to the user. And this is a configurable dashboard, so users can add and remove information as they see fit. And this dashboard here currently shows those items that are assigned to this user and their status. So I have an understanding of the overall progress here. And you can see this page also highlights those requirements for which there are recorded comments, but have not yet been shared externally with stakeholders. And right from this page, actually, we can go through and create that deviation list, which will then produce a file that contains the information as well as the means for external stakeholders to easily view and respond to clarifications or deviation requests. You'll actually be able to see here how the information that's exported can be configured to ensure that these external stakeholders have access to the information that they need. And from here, the user simply needs to view the information, respond in the necessary column with what their response is. So you can see it's using Excel, familiar and intuitive for your stakeholders. And from there, the file with their response is then imported back into the solution, so the conversation is captured. We can see how the communication changes there on the bottom right. And ultimately, since all of this information is synced with the AI layer, this conversation, this information, will ultimately be utilized for further bid development kind of where it is needed, allowing you to continue to grow, refine, and develop your bids. The last thing I'm going to comment on is really depending on the stage of development as well as your defined process, change requests may be kicked off in order to comprehensively record as well as track item updates. These change requests are linked to the applicable requirement, and this traceability is reliably captured and easily visible through various impact analysis reports. And with this view, you can see potential items that this change will impact, as well as any further decomposed items that link to that bid requirement. That includes tasks, that includes tests, includes, again, further decomposed requirements. Anything that you may capture within the management platform can be created here and ultimately is traceable back to the source in an intuitive, accessible platform. So from here, there are really many additional capabilities for reuse, version control, etc., that we were not able to explore during our limited time. But to essentially kind of wrap up what we discussed, we've just seen a solution that, again, helps to automate that mundane task of document extraction and analysis, provides that intelligent AI-powered insights from your historical data, and centralizes collaboration and enables that comprehensive process control, automated history tracking, and complete traceability. Again, all for the goal here of reducing non-billable hours, decreasing non-conformance costs, and increasing your win rate. So from here, Bryant, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to you for a quick close.
Thank you very much, Chris. Very well done. And I want to thank everybody again for joining us today. We look forward to engaging with many of you to explore this further relevant to your business requirements. Please reach out to me with any questions or to coordinate a follow-up meeting. My email address is bryant.hendricks@siemens.com. It's also on the landing page, the webinar landing page, and look forward and very happy to respond to any questions that you have.
Thank you for watching. To learn more about this topic, check out the links in the description. And if you enjoyed what you saw, like the video and subscribe to the channel.